If slow, emotional stories about a burned-out CEO, a brave nanny, and a silent little girl who finally finds the words, "Stay home," touch your heart. Please like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next healing story on this channel. The music was much too loud for a 6-year-old hiding under a table. From where she crouched, Lila Archer could only see shoes. Shiny black shoes, high red heels, velvet loafers. They moved like restless animals on the polished floor, pounding tiny earthquakes through the thick rug and into her knees. Above, the ballroom of the Archer townhouse glittered. Crystal chandeliers threw hard light. A jazz band twisted Christmas songs into something sharp and clever. People laughed in the register that hurt Lila's ears the most. She pressed her palm tighter around the snow globe. Inside the tiny glass dome, fake snow drifted around a paper-cut winter village. It made sense. Clear, contained, predictable. Out here was too much. She tapped the underside of the table with 2 fingers. Tap, 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 tap. The rhythm anchored her. The world shrank to her hand, the carpet, the cold curve of glass against her cheek. Someone laughed too close. A fork hit a plate with a bright, violent ring. Lila flinched. She made a small sound, more breath than word. Nobody heard, not until another pair of shoes stepped close and stopped. These shoes were flat, soft-soled, dark blue canvas dusted with salt from the snow outside. They paused, then bent. A face appeared in the dim tint of the tablecloth. A woman, not very tall, about the age of the waitstaff, but not dressed like them. Black dress, gray cardigan, hair pinned up quickly, like she'd done it in the car. Eyes steady, brown, warm, careful. "Hi," she said quietly. Her voice slipped under the tablecloth like a whisper, not a knife. "I'm Ivy." Lila froze. The woman didn't come closer. She just folded herself down, ducking under the tablecloth until she, too, sat on the carpet. Now there were 2 sets of legs under here. Outside, the music swelled. The chandelier crystals rattled. Ivy looked up at the underside of the table as if it were a sky. "It's noisy," she said softly. "Too much." Lila went back to tapping. Tap, 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 tap. Ivy watched her hand for a moment. Then she lifted her own hand and copied the rhythm on the leg of her own chair. Tap, 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 tap. Not exactly in sync, just a half beat behind, following, not leading. Lila's fingers stumbled. She turned her head and stared. Ivy smiled, but not the big, teeth-showing smile adults use when they wanted something. It was small, almost shy. "Can I stay here with you for a bit?" she asked, just until the music stopped screaming. The band hit a high, brassy note. Lila flinched again. Ivy hummed very quietly, a single low note, under the music. It took the sharp edges off the room, like wrapping a blanket around a siren. After a moment, Ivy opened her palm on the carpet, fingers relaxed. Lila watched that open hand. It did not push toward her, and it did not grab. It just waited. "If you want to move," Ivy whispered, "we can go somewhere the lights don't blink so much. Somewhere the floor doesn't shake. Somewhere you can still see the snow." She nodded faintly toward the big glass doors that led to the back garden, visible as a bright rectangle from Lila's angle. "I like snow," Ivy added. "On the other side of glass, it's quiet there." Lila swallowed. Her throat felt tight. She looked from the snow globe to the pale, steady hand in front of her. Then, very slowly, she set the globe down between them. Her other hand crept across the rug, hesitant, trembling. She put it in Ivy's. Ivy didn't squeeze. She just curled her fingers around the small, cold hand, as if she were holding something breakable and important. "Okay," Ivy breathed. "Let's have our own Christmas." She lifted the tablecloth with her free hand. The light from the chandelier stabbed in. Lila squeezed her eyes shut. "Hold on to me," Ivy murmured. "Feet on the carpet. We're going to walk to the snow." They emerged into the ballroom like divers surfacing. For a moment, no one noticed them. The guests were turned toward the bar, the band, each other. Then someone gasped. Heads turned. The billionaire host's autistic daughter, The one most people had only seen in carefully staged family photos, was walking across the floor holding the nanny's hand. She was barefoot. Her party shoes dangled from the fingers of her free hand. Her dress was soft gray, not glittery, chosen because the stiff satin made her cry. Ivy didn't look at anyone else. She moved with calm, steady steps toward the side corridor, shielding Lila with her body from the worst of the noise. Up on the mezzanine, leaning on the railing, Caleb Archer saw them. At first, he thought he was imagining it. He'd spent most of the evening being pulled between investors, designers, board members. He'd shaken so many hands his palm felt numb. He'd given a toast he barely remembered him. He had not seen his daughter since he'd kissed the top of her head an hour ago and told the new nanny she can go up to her room if she gets overwhelmed. But there she was, under the chandeliers he'd chosen with a commercial photographer in mind, in the house his name bought, walking across the floor like it belonged to her. She wasn't looking at him. She was watching the line where Ivy's palm met hers, as if it were the only safe point in the room. Caleb's breath caught. When did she start doing that? One of the board members murmured beside him. Caleb didn't answer. He turned, leaving the laughter, the music, the charts of next quarter's projections, and followed the two figures slipping out of the ballroom. He was not close enough to see what happened in the side hallway. He only saw them disappear into the dim light near the glass doors. But later, when a curious guest wandered over to see why the music sounded softer all of a sudden, they would glimpse a sight that would stay in their memory: a woman in a cardigan, stocking feet planted firmly on polished wood, a barefoot girl standing on her toes on the fronts of the woman's shoes, arms around her waist, the two of them swaying in a slow, private dance in the echo of distant jazz. No twirling, no applause, just a quiet rhythm, and the reflection of falling snow in the glass. I should fire you, Caleb said. He said it the next morning, in the library with the heavy curtains still half drawn against the winter sun. Ivy stood on the rug that had cost more than her car, hands folded loosely in front of her, posture relaxed but spine straight. She had slept maybe 4 hours. Nannies were supposed to ignore parties and clean up quietly around them. She had crawled under the table instead. Caleb sat in the leather armchair behind the desk, not in the way he sat during board meetings, broad shoulders squared, voice smooth. Now he leaned forward, forearms on his knees, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie on the desk beside him. You ignored the guidelines, he went on. You left your post. You took Lila through a room full of people when she was already overstimulated. I improvised. He said the last word like it had never applied to anything in his house before. Ivy met his eyes. If you want to, you can fire me, she said. That's your right. She's your daughter. It's your house. He frowned. That's it, he asked. She hesitated. Then, carefully, she added, but it's also her house. And last night, under that table, it was the only place that felt safe. He opened his mouth, closed it again. I'm not an expert in, he gestured vaguely, all of this. I hire them. I read the reports. They all say structure, consistency, no surprises. And what you did looked like a surprise. Consistency is important, Ivy agreed. But so is listening. Listening, he repeated. She was tapping. Ivy said 2 taps. Pause. Again. That's how she was telling the world. This is too much. I'm still here. Nobody answered. So I did. I matched her rhythm. I joined her instead of dragging her out. He watched her, eyes narrowed, as if trying to decide whether this was nonsense or not. And the dancing in the hallway, he asked? There was a piano playing under the band, she said. I turned my volume down until I could find it. I gave her something steady to hang on to. She did the rest. He remembered the sight of his daughter's pale feet on the fronts of Ivy's shoes, the way Lila's head had rested briefly against Ivy's chest. For a second, his throat closed. He cleared it. Did she say anything, he asked? Any words? Not then, Ivy said, but she watched the snow. She relaxed. Her shoulders came down. That's a word, in its own way. He ran a hand over his face. You changed her environment without consulting her therapist, the neurologist, the behaviorist. He said, they all have plans. With respect, Ivy said quietly. None of them were under the table last night. I was... The room went very still. Caleb stared at her. Sit, he said finally, nodding to the chair opposite him. Please don't. She sat. He laced his fingers together. Okay, he said, if you're staying. I'm not assuming I am, she cut in. If you're staying, he repeated. I need to know what you need to do your job in a way that doesn't scare you and doesn't terrify me. She considered. A small room, she said, close to the kitchen. No overhead lights, just warm lamps, heavy curtains, no scented candles. Shelves low enough for Lila to reach by herself. Things she can choose from, a place she knows is hers, not just borrowed space in a house full of people. A sensory room, he said. A quiet room, she corrected gently. For her, for you, if you ever sit in it. He almost smiled at that. Is this going to fix her, he asked. The sentence hung between them, ugly and tired. Ivy's gaze softened, but she didn't flinch. She isn't broken, she said. The world is loud. The room would help make it less loud. He leaned back. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked unsure. You really think a room can change anything, he asked. She thought of her sister on the kitchen floor years ago. Flashing lights, the TV blaring, her mother shouting over it and calling it a spell. Yes, she said. I do? He nodded once. All right, he said. You tell the contractor what you want. Don't blow the budget. And send me a list of whatever else you think Lila needs that she doesn't have yet. She blinked. You're not firing me, she asked. He shook his head. You disobeyed the letter of the rules, he said. But last night, where I could watch my daughter walk through a room full of people and not fall apart, because someone chose her over the rules. His voice thinned. I'm not sure I've ever done that, he added. So no, I'm not firing you. For a heartbeat, something like grief and relief crossed his face at the same time. Thank you, Ivy said. Don't thank me yet, he replied. I'm going to want reports, notes, data. If I'm trusting you, I need to understand what you're doing. That's fair, she said. And Miss Hart, he added as she stood. Yes, next time you go under a table with her, he said, let me know if there's room for one more. The first time Lila melted down in front of him, it happened in a grocery store. It was 2 weeks before Christmas. The Archer townhouse's new quiet room was nearly done. The painters had covered the walls in a soft, dull green. The electrician had installed dimmers instead of switches. A carpenter was building low shelves. Ivy had drawn little pictures on sticky notes and placed them where books and weighted blankets and noise-canceling headphones would go. Caleb walked through the half-finished space every night, hands in his pockets, as if memorizing it. You know, he said once, my company has spent 10 years making hotel lobbies that photograph well. I've never cared this much about a room no one else will see. Someone very important will see it, Ivy said. He didn't answer, but his hand brushed the door frame like an old habit. Now he pushed a grocery cart, something he hadn't done in years, while Lila walked beside Ivy, holding onto the cloth handle of a child's shopping basket. Fluorescents hummed overhead. Holiday music poured from the ceiling speakers, sped up with bells layered on top. There were displays of candy canes and gift baskets and artificial trees. Lila's shoulders rose higher with every aisle. Headphones, Ivy murmured. Lila squeezed the padded band of the noise-canceling headphones around her ears. The world dampened, but the high, sharp sounds still slipped through, a cart slamming into another, a baby crying, a cashier dropping a roll of coins. They moved steadily. Ivy pointed to picture cards on a keyring. Bread, milk, oranges. Lila tapped the one she wanted to help find. It was going surprisingly well. Caleb almost let himself relax. Then someone at the end of the aisle shook a metal bell to collect donations. The clear, cold ring sliced through the padded noise. Lila jerked. Her basket dropped. Oranges rolled in every direction. Her hands flew to her ears, fingers digging into her hair. The next sound she made was not a word. It was a raw animal cry. Lila, Caleb said, stepping forward. She dropped to the floor. Her small body curled in on itself, back against the shelf. heels drumming the tile. Her breath came fast, shallow. Her face was blotchy, eyes wide without seeing. People stared. Someone muttered, "Control your kid." Caleb's vision tunneled. "Lila, stop," he said. "Sweetheart, stop." His voice rose with his panic. Ivy moved faster. She knelt and placed herself between Lila and the aisle, making her body a wall. "Caleb," she said, looking up at him. "You're loud." His mouth snapped shut. "She's not misbehaving," Ivy said firmly. "She's overwhelmed. The bell hurt. The lights hurt. Her head is full. We need to make her world smaller." He swallowed. "What do I do?" he asked her. "Sit," she said. "What?" "On the floor," she said. "Here, beside her, so she can find you when she comes back." He stared. Then, slowly Boakon, he lowered himself onto the cold tile, expensive coat pooling around him, back to the cereal boxes. Shoppers steered their carts around them, some frowning, some pretending not to see. Ivy took Lila's hands, gently but firmly, moving them from her hair to her own palms. She pressed Lila's swami toward her body, adding steady, deep pressure. "It's too loud," she murmured. "We're going to make it quieter. Feel my hands. Feel the floor. Breathe with me." She inhaled slowly, exaggerating the motion, then let the breath out through her nose. After a few cycles, Caleb copied her, his own breathing shaky at first. "Lila," he said softly. "It's Dad. I'm here. I'm not leaving." It took a long time. Long enough for the woman with the bell to move to the other end of the store. Long enough for the store manager to peek around the corner and then back away at Ivy's steady look. Eventually, Lila's kicking slowed. Her body shifted. She leaned sideways, eyes still closed, until her forehead pressed against Caleb's chest. He went still, afraid to break whatever delicate process was happening. Her lips parted. The sound she made this time was small, cracked. "Home," she whispered. Caleb's heart stuttered. "What did she say?" he asked hoarsely. "Home," Ivy said. "She wants to go home." He nodded, throat tight. "We'll go home," he whispered into his daughter's hair. "We'll always go home." Later, when the groceries were abandoned and Lila was finally resting in the new quiet room, wrapped in a weighted blanket, Ivy found Caleb in the kitchen. He stood by the sink, fingers white on the edge of the counter. "I've never seen her like that," he said. "You've never been there when she's like that," Ivy replied gently. He flinched as if she'd hit him. "I'm not saying you don't care," she added quickly. "I know you do. I've seen your calendar. I know how many therapies you've arranged, how many specialist flights you've paid for." She took a breath. "But meltdowns happen whether or not you're in the room," she said. "They don't wait for your schedule. You can't hire someone else to live them for you." He stared at the floor. "Today you were there," she went on. "You sat on the ground, you breathed with her. She wanted home, and you were part of that. That matters." He pressed a hand over his eyes. "I feel like I'm always late," he said quietly, "to every part of her life." Ivy's chest ached. "You're here now," she said. "That's the only time she knows." On Saturdays, Ivy went to the community center 2 bus rides away. She didn't tell the Archer household at first. It wasn't a secret, just something that belonged to the part of her life before this house, before the salary that covered rent without fear. The center ran a quiet story time for autistic kids. The room was small, painted peeling yellow, lit by lamps scavenged from someone's attic. Foam mats covered the floor. There were plastic bins of well-worn picture books and sensory toys. Parents sat on folding chairs and tried not to look as tired as they felt. Ivy sat on the floor, legs crossed, and read slowly from a book about a penguin who hated loud parties. She kept her voice low. She didn't use silly character voices. She turned the pages when the kids' eyes moved, not when she reached the end of a sentence. Halfway through, a boy in a striped sweater covered his ears and whined. His mother hissed, "Stop that." The boy's rocking intensified. "Honestly, you're 6, the woman whispered sharply. "Other kids your age can sit for a story without making a scene. You're embarrassing me." Ivy's voice wavered. For a moment, the room around her blurred. The boy's outline doubled, and in the second image, she saw Rose lit by the flicker of a TV left on too loud, clutching the edge of the coffee table while her body tried to tear itself apart. "You're doing this to get attention," their mother had said back then. "Stop it. You'll scare your sister." The seizure swallowed the rest of the sentence. Rose never got up from the floor on her own again. Now, in the community center, Ivy forced her eyes back to the page. She softened her tone even more, letting the rhythm of the story carry through the roughness in the air. Afterward, in the break room that smelled of instant coffee and bleach, her phone lit up with a call from Mom. She stared at it for a long second. Then she answered. "So," Margaret Hart said without greeting, "are you done playing nurse yet? Everyone says Christmas in town is nicer this year. You could help me at the diner. It's busy." "I have a job, Mom," Ivy said, wrapping her hands around the lukewarm mug. "A good one." Babysitting her mother scoffed. "You went to school to change diapers for rich people." "I went to school to understand kids like Rose," Ivy said. "So what happened to her doesn't have to happen to someone else." On the other end, silence. Then, "Brittle, your sister was just delicate. It was God's will." "It was epilepsy," Ivy said. Her voice shook. "And autism. And a house full of noise and no doctor who listened for more than 5 minutes." "We did our best," Margaret snapped. "Don't you dare. I know you did what you knew how to do." Ivy cut in. "I am doing what I know how to do. I can't come home and pretend it was all just bad luck." "Family is family," Margaret said. "That little girl you're fussing over isn't yours." Ivy closed her eyes. "No," she said softly. "She's her father's. And he's still here. I have a chance to help them both. I can't walk away from that. Not yet. If you stay in that world too long, you'll forget you have one of your own," Margaret warned. The words stabbed deeper than Ivy wanted to admit. After the call ended, she sat in the quiet break room, staring at the cheap clock on the wall. She didn't realize someone else had walked in until she heard a throat clear. She looked up and saw Caleb standing in the doorway, snow melting on his coat shoulders. "Hi," he said awkwardly. The contractor told me you were here on Saturdays. I thought I'd drop by. See what this place looks like." Heat crept up Ivy's neck. "How much did you hear?" she asked. "Enough to know your sister's name is Rose," he said quietly, "and that you've been carrying something heavy for a long time." Her fingers tightened around the mug. "I didn't mean to." "You don't owe me an explanation," he said. "But so thank you for staying, even when people who love you don't understand why." She let out a long, steady breath. "You're welcome," she said. He glanced at the scuffed floor, the cheap furniture. "This place could use better lighting," he murmured, "and thicker curtains. Maybe a better sound system. And someone who knows what they're doing to run programs." "We make do," Ivy said. "You shouldn't have to," he replied. She didn't understand what he meant until much later. The quiet Christmas almost didn't happen. Archer and Moore had always hosted an extravagant holiday party at the flagship hotel downtown. This year, after the party at the townhouse, the PR team proposed doubling down. "Your brand is warmth," Dana, the head of PR, said in a meeting. "We lean into it. We show the big tree, the charity auction, the champagne. It makes investors feel safe. It makes guests feel like they're buying into something bigger than themselves." In another meeting, Ivy sat across from Caleb at the kitchen island. "Big trees, loud music, crowds," she said. "That's what makes Lila crumble. She doesn't need bigger. She needs smaller." "I can't cancel the hotel event," he said. "Too much money, too many contracts. But at home," he trailed off and Ivy waited. "What if we split it?" he said slowly. "All the adult performance goes to the hotel, the press, the donors, the fireworks on the harbor. Here we do something else." She smiled. "A low-sensory Christmas," she said. For her, they decorated the quiet room together. No blinking lights, just a small tree with soft yellow bulbs, their glow barely brighter than candlelight. No scented pine candles, Just the faint smell of gingerbread cookies cooling in the kitchen. No loud hymns, just a playlist of slow piano versions of carols, playing at the volume of a sigh. On Christmas Eve, Lila stepped into the room and stopped. Her eyes widened. She tiptoed to the tree and touched one of the bulbs. It was warm, not hot. She turned her hand, watching the light glow through her fingers. Ivy stood back, letting her explore. Caleb sat cross-legged on the floor, a box of unbreakable ornaments beside him. "Hi, Bug," he said quietly. "Want to help?" Lila glanced at him, then at the ornament. A red ball, matte, not shiny. He rolled it toward her along the rug. She picked it up and pressed it to her cheek. Her lips moved. "Soft," she whispered. He looked at Ivy, eyes wide. "She said soft," he mouthed. Ivy nodded, smiling. Lila hung the ornament on a low branch, then another, and another. Her movements were careful, deliberate. Ivy pulled out her phone. She hesitated. She had never been that person, the one who recorded every moment. But this was different. This was the kind of Christmas she had wanted for Rose, and never gotten. She hit record. The short clip captured Caleb on the floor, in jeans and a sweater, not a suit. Lila barefoot, in a long-sleeved t-shirt with a penguin on it, hanging ornaments at her own eye level. Ivy's off-screen voice, soft and almost reverent. "That's beautiful, Lila." Lila's small shoulders relaxing as she whispered, "Warm." Later, Ivy sent this clip to her mother with a text. "I wish Rose had had a Christmas like this. It's possible." Her finger hovered over the send button. She pressed it. Hours later, while Ivy was reading to Lila in the quiet room, Margaret forwarded the video to Ivy's cousin. The cousin, who lived online and saw everything through a screen, thought people need to see this, so she posted the clip with the caption, "Billionaire boss turns off Christmas noise for his autistic daughter." By dawn, millions of strangers had watched it. Some cried, some commented, some argued, some saved it to watch again. Caleb woke up to a dozen missed calls and a phone full of notifications. He watched the video alone in his office, lights off, laptop open. He saw himself, not as CEO, not as the carefully controlled figure in annual reports, but as a man on the floor, face soft, hands gentle, eyes on his child. He watched it twice. The second time, he paused on the frame where Lila looked up at him with something like trust. His chest hurt. He pressed his palm flat against the screen, like he could touch that moment again. Then the call started. "You have to admit, it's a PR gift," Dana said. They sat in a glass-walled conference room at headquarters. On the table between them lay a printout of the viral post and a stack of emails from journalists requesting comment. "We could build a whole campaign around this." She went on. "Archer and Moore as pioneers of calming, inclusive design. You as the face of compassionate leadership. It's gold." Caleb glared at the paper. "It was supposed to be private," he said. Dana shrugged. "Nothing is private if it's on a phone," she said. "The question is, do we let the narrative run without us, or do we shape it?" Another board member, a man with silver hair and an expensive watch, tapped his pen. "My concern is the flip side," he said. "Investors might worry you're distracted, that your attention is divided between your daughter's needs and the company's." "Welcome to being a parent," Caleb said dryly. "Attention is always divided." "We just want to protect the brand," Dana said smoothly. "And your family." She slid another brochure across the table. A glossy photo of a campus in the countryside. Trees. A lake. A modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows. "At Haven Ridge," she recited, "children on the spectrum receive 24/7 specialized care. Speech therapists, occupational therapists, carefully regulated environments. Your daughter could thrive there, away from the spotlight." Caleb picked up the brochure. The words swam. "She's 6, he said. Haven Ridge takes kids from 5 and up." Dana said, "Uso, we could arrange it discreetly. The public sees a devoted father doing the best for his child. The board sees a CEO fully focused again. Everyone wins." He set the brochure down as if it burned. "She just asked for home for the first time," he said, "and your solution is to send her away from it." "It wouldn't be forever," the board member said. just during her most intensive years. Think about the resources. They're the best in the country. Caleb thought about the grocery store floor, about Lila's head against his chest, her whispered home. He thought about the quiet room, about her fingers on the tree lights, about warm. I'll think about it, he said. They seemed satisfied with that. They left the brochure on the table. Later, in the Archer kitchen, Ivy found it. She recognized the glossy promises. She'd seen them in the brochures her mother had refused to read for Rose, and in the ones other parents had clung to like life rafts. She flipped it open. Words like state-of-the-art and cutting-edge program jumped out, wrapped in photos of smiling children on grass that never got muddy. Her stomach knotted. That night, after Lila fell asleep, Ivy found Caleb in the hallway. "Are you sending her away?" she asked, holding up the brochure. He looked tired. "I don't know," he said. "The board thinks it's best. They say she'd get more help there. More therapy, more everything. She'd get less you," Ivy said. His jaw tightened. "I'm trying to be responsible," he said. "If my being CEO puts her under this kind of microscope, maybe this is safer." For who, Ivy asked? For her or for the company? He flinched. "That's not fair," he said. "Maybe not," she said softly. "But it's honest." She placed the brochure on the counter. "At Haven Ridge, she might learn to tolerate the world better." Ivy went on. "Maybe. Or maybe she'll just learn to cope alone." She met his eyes. "Here, she has you," she said. "She has a room made for her. She has a chance to ask for home and get it. You can't outsource that." He looked away. "I have responsibilities," he whispered to him. "So do I," she said. To her, to myself, to the memory of a little girl who died on a kitchen floor because nobody listened when she said too much. Silence pressed in. "Whatever you decide," Ivy said eventually, voice shaking, "I need you to know something. I will not be the one to pack Lila's things for a place she didn't ask for. I can't do that again." She turned and walked away before he could answer. New Year's Eve arrived with ice on the sidewalks in a hard gray sky. At the Archer Hotel, the ballroom was dressed in gold and white. Chandeliers sparkled. The band rehearsed upbeat songs to carry people into the next year. In the townhouse, the quiet room glowed softly. Ivy sat on the floor with Lila, arranging small paper stars on the rug. They had drawn numbers on them in thick marker. "When the clock says 10, Ivy explained, we'll move the star here. When it says 11, this one. And when it says midnight, we'll do something soft. No bangs, no flashes, just a new minute." Lila considered the stars. Her fingers traced the shape of a 1. "New," she repeated. "Yes," Ivy said. "New." Caleb straightened his tie in the mirror at the hotel. Dana hovered nearby with a stack of note cards. "You'll hit the usual points," she said. "Growth, resilience, vision. Then you close with something human. Mention the video of your daughter. People love that. It shows you have a heart." He looked at his reflection. He didn't recognize the man in the suit as easily as he used to. "Right," he said faintly. His phone buzzed. "Ivy, we're about to start our quiet countdown." She's excited. She lined up the stars herself. He smiled despite the knot in his chest. Then another text. "Ivy again. Neighbors started fireworks early. She's under the table. She's saying 'no loud daddy' on repeat. I'm holding her. She's asking for you." The words punched the air out of his lungs. Outside, in the ballroom, the MC's voice boomed. "Please welcome the man who built this incredible year, our own Caleb Archer." Applause crashed like surf. Dana thrust the note cards into his hand. "Time to shine," she whispered. He stared at the door to the stage. Then at his phone. "No loud daddy." He imagined Lila under the kitchen table, hands clamped over her ears. World too bright, too sharp. He saw Ivy curled around her, knees pressed into the tile. He saw Rose on the kitchen floor of his imagination, a child he never met but whose story had tangled itself with his own. The ballroom noise faded behind the roaring in his ears. "Mr. Archer," Dana said. "Caleb." He stepped out onto the stage. The lights hit him. Hundreds of faces turned up, expectant. He didn't look at any of them. He looked, instead, at the exit sign glowing red at the back. "Good evening," he said into the microphone. His voice echoed over the speakers. "Thank you for being here," he went on. "Thank you for trusting Archer and Moore with your homes, your nights, your milestones. We've had a successful year. The numbers say so." A polite ripple of laughter. He took a breath. "In the last few weeks," he said, "many of you have seen a video of me at home, on the floor, with my daughter." A murmur. "You've called it inspiring," he said. "You've called me a good father. The truth is, that video caught one of the first moments I actually showed up for her, not as a problem to solve, but as a person." His throat tightened. "For 6 years," he said, "I've given the best of my attention to this company. I told myself it was for her, to give her a secure future. I thought money and programs and experts were enough." He swallowed. "They're not," he said. "She doesn't need a better brochure. She needs a quieter world. And she needs me in it." The room held its breath. "The board and I have had a lot of conversations lately about what's best for the company," he continued. "Tonight, I want to say, on record, what I think is best for my family." He looked up, straight into the bright lights, as if looking at something beyond them. "Archer and Moore will be fine without me as CEO," he said. "It has teams, systems, people who can run reports and negotiate deals." He let that sink in. "I am stepping down as CEO after the transition period," he said. "I'll stay on as a consultant. I'll work on a new line of spaces designed to be gentle on people like my daughter. But my full-time job is going to be learning how to be a father in her world, not dragging her into mine." Gasps. A chair scraped. Dana looked like she had swallowed something wrong. "I know this makes some of you nervous, Dion," he said. "Loss of continuity, change in leadership. But I can't keep asking my daughter to carry the weight of my career on top of the weight of the world. I won't send her away so I can stay on this stage." He smiled, small and tired and real. "So tonight," he finished, "go home. Kiss whoever you love. Turn the volume down for a minute. Listen to what the quiet is trying to tell you. That's where I'm going." He set the microphone down. Before the applause could decide whether to start, he stepped off the stage and walked toward the exit. He didn't look back. By the time he reached the townhouse, his hands were shaking. The parking spot in front of the house was dusted with snow. A spent firework lay half buried near the curb. He fumbled with his keys. Inside, the house was dim. No party lights, no music, just the soft glow spilling from the quiet room. He found Ivy on the floor, half reclining against the wall. Lila curled between her and the couch like a cat in a patch of sun. Both of them were asleep. Lila's cheeks were blotchy from the crying. There was glitter on Ivy's sleeve. The paper stars lay scattered on the rug, some trampled, some still lined up in a crooked row. Caleb crouched. For a long time, he just watched them breathe. He could leave it like this, he thought. Let Ivy go back to her life. Hire another nanny. Fly Lila to some center with perfect carpets. Or he could do something harder. He stood, moving quietly, and walked to the kitchen. On the table sat Ivy's small suitcase, half-packed, clothes folded neatly, a ticket on top, printed from an email Boston to her hometown. His chest clenched. New Year's morning crept in gray and cold. Ivy woke with a stiff neck and the taste of sleep in her mouth. For a second, she didn't know where she was. Then she felt the weight of a small body against her side and remembered him. Lila blinked up at her. The girl sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. She slid off the blanket and padded out of the quiet room. I should get my things, Ivy murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Before it gets harder. She pushed herself to her feet and followed. The hallway was unusually silent. No TV, no phone ringing. In the living room, the big tree from the party weeks ago stood bare, its lower branches stripped, its upper ones still hung with ornaments. Ivy turned toward the guest room to close her suitcase. She stopped. Lila was in the doorway, blocking it. On the wall next to the bed was the magnetic board Ivy sometimes used for matching games. She had left the alphabet tiles jumbled at the bottom. Now, Lila held one in each hand, her brow furrowed in intense concentration. She pressed an S onto the board, then a T. She hesitated. Her fingers searched the pile, found an A, then a Y. The letters weren't perfectly straight, but they were clear. Ivy's breath caught. Lila looked from the board to Ivy. Her mouth moved. Stay, she whispered. The word was sticky, hard to push out, but she did it. Stay, home. The phrase was newer, longer, fragile as thin glass. Tears flooded Ivy's eyes. Her legs gave out. She sat on the edge of the bed. You want me to stay, she managed. Lila nodded once, vigorously. Then she reached back into the pile of magnets, pulled out another letter R and placed it above the word. Her hand trembled. Rose, Ivy breathed. She saw it. Then, in her mind's eye, a sign over a doorway that didn't exist yet. 2 names, 2 girls, a place that might have saved one and would be built to save others. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Caleb appeared in the doorway, hair mussed, tie gone, shirt untucked. He looked like a man who had been through a storm and had not yet checked how much damage it left. He took in the letters on the board, the suitcase on the bed, Ivy's wet face, Lila standing straight, breathing hard with the effort of her words. Caleb's eyes shone. He stepped into the room and held out a folder. I had the lawyers draft something, he said, voice rough. I didn't know if I'd have the courage to give it to you if you were already gone. Ivy wiped at her cheeks and took the folder. On the top page, a simple logo, 2 flowers, one fully bloomed, one still a bud. Beneath, the name, Rose and Lila Center for Quiet Minds and Gentle Spaces. Her vision blurred. She blinked until the words came back into focus. It's a community center, Caleb said. Not a clinic, not a warehouse. A place where kids like Lila can come with their parents. Where the rooms are built for them, not just for pictures. He swallowed. I sold part of my shares, he went on. We have funding for the building, the staff, the programs. I'd like you to run it, design it. The way you designed her room. Ivy flipped to the next page. There, in clean type, were roles. Founder Caleb Archer, Director of Programs Ivy Hart. She began. He stepped closer. And here, he said, holding out another piece of paper, is something that doesn't have a title. It was a photograph, printed from his phone. The one from Christmas Eve. He had cropped it so you could only see the lower half of the frame, his knees on the floor. Lila's small hand reaching up, Ivy's hand reaching down. Whatever this is, he said, nodding at the image, then at the 3 of them. It's not just employer and employee. It's not just a project for my conscience or your guilt. It's the beginnings of a family, if you want it. He looked down at Lila. And she just asked you to stay, he added. His voice broke slightly on the word. Ivy looked between them. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. That little girl isn't yours. Rose's memory lay heavy on her heart, a child never given the room she needed. She thought of all the Saturday mornings at the community center, of the peeling pain and the kids who flinched at every slam of the door. She thought of the quiet room downstairs, of the way Lila's body softened against her when the world got too loud. Fear whispered, if you stay and something goes wrong, it will be your fault again. Another voice, quieter but steadier, whispered back, if you leave, you will always wonder who held her under the table the next time the fireworks start. I don't know how to be in a family that looks like this, Ivy said. Neither do I, Caleb admitted. But I want to learn. With you. With her. He didn't reach for her hand. He let it hang at his side, open. Lila solved it for them. She walked over, small bare feet soundless on the rug. She took Ivy's hand in one of hers, took Caleb's in the other. Then she brought their hands together, stacking them gently, her own resting on top. 3 palms, 3 different pulses, one small, quiet circle. Outside the window, snow began to fall again, soft and slow. No fireworks, no countdown. Just the hush of a world turned down low enough for a little girl to breathe, and the fragile, fierce decision of 3 people to stay in it together,